Hey y'all, it's Rick here with Uncommon Communion. And yes, I am quite late at getting this post out. Last night, I succumbed to the temptation. You probably expected this if you've been following my trajectory recently to watch the final season episode of Severance. And man, it was a humdinger. So I watched that, put me on a later trajectory, and then I just didn't have it in me to record this last night. I'll tell you this though, recording it today, even 12 hours ish later than I would have recorded it, is giving me a whole lot of other things to talk about. So buckle up, y'all. Before that though, let us remember what matters in the midst of this insanity, this increasing danger and insanity that we are living in, remembering what the foundation of everything is, the foundation of creation, the foundation of everything is the holy presence of God, the more, as I call that. So let us remember we are always and everywhere in the holy presence of the more and each other. That and each other is something actually I have added. The original statement, let us remember we are always and everywhere in the holy presence of God, comes from the Lasallian brothers. My very first teaching job, almost 35 years ago-ish at this point, it was with that order. And that is their motto, that is their North Star guiding them. But that each other is something that a friend many years ago suggested that I add. Because yes, anytime we are in communion, in connection, in relationship with another, that is a holy moment. And Jesus says as much. Where two or three are gathered, there I am present, right? He says, in my name. But I would suspect and I would assert that it doesn't matter if we are consciously saying Jesus's name when we gather, if we gather in love and goodness and compassion and kindness and empathy, all those things that seem like they're in short shrift for a lot of people who call themselves Christians, those hippo Christians out there. Yeah, anytime we gather in the name of love, in the name of justice, God is present. Well, God is always present, but we are embodying and incarnating God's presence in the world in a special way when we gather for that, and especially when we speak and work for that. What I wanted to share with you today on this Martin Luther King Day is two things that caught my attention this morning. One I think is hopeful, the other is absolutely bonkers and dangerous and potentially placing us on the verge of a catastrophe in the world. Well, let's start with the hopeful one, and I think the one that actually leads into the other one. It was announced today that 3 U.S. Catholic bishops, and I think they might actually, a couple of them are cardinals, I believe. I'm looking over at my other screen here to get the names right. One is yeah, they are all three cardinals, which is just a higher level of bishop, somebody that's like elevated to a more significant level. And the cardinals, of course, vote for the next pope. Cardinal Blaise Cupich of Chicago, Robert McElroy of Washington, and Joseph Tobin of Newark. So very prominent U.S. cardinals. And they came out with a statement that says, quote, the Washington foreign policy was mired in polarization, partisanship, and narrow economics and social interests. And then this is a quote related to that from McElroy, Cardinal McElroy, quote, most of the United States and the world are adrift morally in terms of foreign policy. I still believe the United States has a tremendous impact upon the world. So we have these three prominent cardinals. Now, again, it's not all the Catholic bishops, right? But three prominent cardinals speaking out very directly against the threshold that we are on. And that threshold, y'all, is getting closer to the edge. I don't know if you saw this morning, but the little dictator put a letter out, or it was leaked, or it was found. I don't know if this was supposed to be public or not, but to the prime minister, of Greenland. And in that letter, tRump said this, quote, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars, plus, now, of course, that's a lie, that's garbage. You can find out about that elsewhere. I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the US. And then he says, the world is not secure unless we have complete and total control of Greenland. He added, yeah, y'all, we are getting into insane, Mad King, dangerous territory. It has become trite almost at this point to be listing the impeachable offenses. And, the Democrats should be screaming about that. Although at this point, it's going to fail and it would be something for the Republicans to run on. I mean, it is absolutely insane. We're in 25th Amendment category right now. And 25th Amendment, if you haven't studied up on this, is where the cabinet and the vice president and the Congress, there's a mechanism that can take the president's power away if he becomes unfit, physically, emotionally, mentally, whatever, to hold the tremendous power that he has to do. And we're in that territory. The problem, though, is who is in the cabinet, who is the vice president, all of those things, y'all. And they are horrible individuals. They are supporting this, and they understand what all of this is about, y'all. And I've said this before, it is to distract from the Epstein files, because tRump's name is all over it. If the truth came out there, not only would he be brought down, but really the entire leadership, oligarchy, all of that would be brought down. And we would finally be able to have a moment, I think, that would unite right and left. And I think it would give us a raising of the structure to be able to build something more just, more economically sound, and more compassionate, I believe. But they're ignoring it. I saw a headline today in Politico reporting that even prominent Republicans, even ones that voted, I think it was Lauren Boebert, who was pushing, she was one of the ones who boldly stood up to get the Epstein Transparency Act into a vote. She says, I'm not really that interested right now. So much other stuff's going on. That's what matters. Bullshit. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that, but no, that's what matters. And they know it. And they're now backing away from that, y'all. So what do we do? Well, in a minute, I'm going to read Psalm 19. It's a short one, so we won't go too far over. What we do, y'all, is take to the streets again and again and again. And, there's people that wonder, I know people that wonder, like, what is the impact? The impact, I think, is significant and important, because when people see other people that look like them, that sound like them, that act like them, out in the cold, out being brave and bold and courageous, it makes a difference. I'm going to put a link to a really important Substack that I saw yesterday. This is the first I heard about this guy. I think his name is Chris, and he is Angry Man in Minnesota. Check it out, y'all. Really important. And I think we need to share these things with others, because when people hear stories and people see images, when things become real, that's when things can happen, and that's when action can happen. So tomorrow, the 20th, the anniversary of him becoming his second term, also my 56th birthday. Thank you very much. It was not a great birthday last year, but every birthday arguably is a good birthday, right? It's another year, right? Another year alive. There's walkouts tomorrow, and people are gathering 2:00 local time, walking out of wherever they are, gathering. Here in Columbus, it's at the State House. And I have something special that I'm going to be bringing to that rally tomorrow. So to set some context, there's a dear, dear lady at church who I have gotten to know. I'm going to not name her, but people that go to my church who watch this will probably know who she is. But she gave me a gift, and I opened it and I've taken a look at it. But she gave me some more context on her gift yesterday. I was talking to her after church, and she said back in the 60s, she was out there in the civil rights, out there in Vietnam, out there marching and doing that. And I thanked her for that, because that's before my time, before my generation. And she said, she kind of laughed. She said, I'm old and I can't do that anymore. And I get that, Tomorrow it's going to be in the 20s. It's going to be cold when we're out there. But she said, I hope you represent. And she gave me this to represent. This is a Donald Trump baby balloon. You can see there he is in his diapers. And, by the way, there are reports that he is actually wearing diapers at this point, a colostomy bag. You can see that out there. But anyway, what I think is even more clever is attached to the balloon. I don't usually do a lot of visual aids here, is a weight, a gold weight that she emphasized yesterday when we were chatting. And I didn't realize this. I had to look closer. It says 2025 polls. Right? So here he is in 26, she's got that on here, being weighed down by those poles. So I thought about getting this inflated, taking it to the dollar store and getting it inflated with helium, but on a cold day, that does not work. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen what happens to balloons on cold days, but it is not a pleasant sight. So I think I'm going to find a way to put this onto my sign and be out there tomorrow. And think of this friend who I hope is subscribing now to this, and I hope that that this, the humor, we need this, y'all. We need the outrage. We need the humor. We need the people in the streets. We need strikes. We need boycotts. We need people to say this is enough, y'all. All right, real briefly, to keep to my pattern of the Psalms, Psalm 19 is a shorter one. It also is one that is very much in the vein of praising God within creation. And, this is, of course, right in the wheelhouse of the First Nations translation. And I think they do a nice job with this. If you've been following this, when I read it, I've been kind of playing with, grandfather is the way that it's translated. I think what I'm going to do is each time the grandfather comes up, I'm going to just say grandfather, grandmother, right? And kind of hear that and see how that strikes you. And I think sometimes maybe when we hear, God doing certain things or being asked to do certain things in the Psalms, maybe one of those is more appropriate than the other. We're just going to kind of play around with it. And I'm also going to take out any gendered pronouns and just put God for that. Okay? So here we go. Father, Mother, Sky is telling us the story of the shining greatness of the one above us all. The starry tent above us shows the beauty that Creator's hands have made. Day after day, the story is told, and night after night, their wisdom fills the sky. Even though the skies above have no spoken words, all creation has heard their message. The voice of the stars in the night sky is spoken to all the land. Their message has traveled to the four directions, to the furthest places on the earth. Creator has pitched a tent for the sun in the sky above. Like a groom, the sun awakens from his sleeping place in the morning and travels across the sky like a strong young man or woman running a well-worn path. It rises in the east and makes its way across the circle of the sky to the west. The sun's warmth reaches out and touches every land. Grandfather, grandmother's instructions are the good medicine we need to bring healing to our souls. When God speaks, even the simple can become wise. Grandfather, grandmother's teachings are straight and true, making our hearts dance. God's instructions wash us clean and show us the path of life. A pure heart that shows deep respect to grandfather, grandmother will last for all days to come. God's words of instructions blaze with truth, making our hearts clean, and our vision clear. God's ways are to be desired more than the feather of a golden eagle, even more than the tail feather of a great eagle. God's teachings are sweeter than honey dripping from a honeycomb. Your ways warn us to walk with firm steps on your path. We are greatly honored when we follow them to the end of the trail. We do not always know when we stray from the good road, so wash us clean and make our path straight. Keep my feet from the way I know is wrong. Do not let my broken ways rule over me. Then I will be set free from my greatest enemy, myself. May the words of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart make you sing, grandfather, grandmother. You are the rock I stand on and the one who sets me free. All right, y'all. One final thought is that last line, verse 14. You probably heard that before. May the words of my mouth and the utterances of my lips, right? You've heard that. That's a part of the daily office, comes up frequently in praying the Psalms. So let us close with that as our prayer. May the words of our mouths and the thoughts of our hearts make you sing, grandfather, grandmother. You are the rock we stand on and the one who sets us free. All right, y'all. Thank you for being here, for your patience and getting this posted. Please share this with others. Please subscribe, hit the like. All of those things matter. Blessing and good. Be bold. Hold fast, y'all.